In today's show, we're going to be talking with Ben from MaverickX. He's going to be talking about different strategies that are working today with Google Ads traffic, direct to a product page listing and direct to their website that they run with MaverickX. Now, this was a paid mastermind as a part of our membership called the Profitable Pineapple Farm. So head to profitablepineapplefarm.com to check out and join us inside the mastermind in our meetings every Wednesday. Ben, welcome to the show.
Great to be here with you, Travis, with so many people who have clearly been digging into this ecosystem for, in some cases, probably longer than I have, and certainly have dug into different specific niches than I have. If it's okay, I can start with just a quick background on how I got to this seat, maybe some context setting.
I was going to say you need to brag on yourself just a little bit because you have a series of accolades that you can kind of talk about and why you're in this space, and then kind of your background a little bit.
Cool. So the long story made short, and we'll double click where people in the audience thinks it's necessary, but did undergraduate at West Point, served in the Army, active for about 4.5 years. While in the Army, actually did an internship at UBS in banking, got out of the Army, worked at Tesla, went to Harvard Business School, simultaneously co-founded this company called BestReviews that we'll come back to in a second, then went full-time with LinkedIn, did LinkedIn and BestReviews concurrently, not recommended, left LinkedIn to go focus exclusively on BestReviews. We scaled that, sold to Tribune Publishing, February of 2018 for a little over 100 million. That business, just to give context, was it when we sold the largest independent affiliate of Amazon's. And so if you think about all of Amazon's revenue, right, a good portion of that comes through their affiliate program, which is referred to as Amazon Associates. So that's primarily taking traffic from Google or Bing, organic and paid search, bringing it to a site like bestreviews.com, giving perspective on a product category, typically, which one to purchase, of air fryers, steam irons, bread baskets, and then sending that traffic to Amazon, to the PDPs where consumers then make their actual purchase. So we grew that from nothing to about 26 in revenue and about 10 in EBITDA, sold that to Tribune Publishing, started into what some would refer to as an earnout. I moved to an advisory role in 2019, and then we actually sold the remainder. We'd sold 60%. We sold the remainder to Nexstar in another transaction in late 2020. So what I did though is after transitioning to that advisory role, I started working on a number of different projects, which have culminated in the creation of a few businesses, which we've sold, and then most recently, MaverickX. And the quick evolution was BestReviews was driving all this traffic to Amazon. Typical year would be anywhere from kind of, depending on the program and so forth, somewhere between like 200 and like 500 million in sales, in primarily US, but also we were like at one point in time the largest player in Canada, pretty good amount of scale in the UK. So a lot of Amazon sales going through the pipes, no relationships with brands, sellers, merchants whatsoever, none. So we had this Amazon direct relationship and buying ads from Google direct relationship, but all of the opportunities to work with brands, sellers, agencies, people like some of you was non-existent. But as you might assume, my email inbox did get messages from time to time, probably about 20 a day, whether it be a seller based out of China, a major brand in the US. They're asking, can you review our product? Can we get a better review of our product? Can we be featured in more articles? Blah, 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 blah. For the reasons that, Travis and I think each of you are becoming quite familiar with. If you're driving this traffic, in from the outside, what we would consider off platform into the Amazon platform, there's value in that, particularly if it's super high intent and super high converting traffic. So one of the businesses business ideas we had coming out of BestReviews, and as I was working on these new projects, was how can we align incentives for sellers and content creators, publishers, et cetera, to get more traffic to specific seller product detail pages, storefronts, et cetera. So fast forward now, we've certainly tested different iterations around this, but fast forward to today, and that's a lot of what we're doing at MaverickX. And so I'll give the really high level, and then I'm going to pause and take any questions on kind of how I got here, and then we can get very tactical as to what is happening in real time. But the basic idea of MaverickX is I think everyone's quite familiar with, and y'all have learned something about already probably. You've got Amazon attribution, which gives for most products and categories roughly a 10% seller rebate for traffic that comes outside Amazon into Amazon and converts through the funnel. That of course didn't exist when we were running Best Reviews. And I think even, a year ago there were some real meaningful bugs and edge cases where it wasn't that high functioning. So I think that was one catalyst. The other was kind of having a lot more understanding of what creates value for sellers and brands and merchants. And so what we're kind of thinking about today, and I'll walk through it visually in a little bit, it's kind of drive traffic from Google, paid search, Bing paid search, text ads to intermediary landing page. Primarily right now, it's ProductPicks is a site we own, which we can optimize specifically for a brand or seller. From there, the traffic goes to the Amazon PDP or storefront based on the type of traffic and the ideal user flow for conversion rates with attribution tracking. Whatever, is actually a sale, you'll get that reporting, and we can then close that loop and optimize the paid ads based on the Google Click ID, the event happening on the ProductPicks site, and then the event on Amazon. Try to measure, all the way back to create the most lucrative flow possible. So that's a lot of what we're doing at MaverickX. We're building new capabilities to do even more, but that's this long story made hopefully rather short. Happy to pause for a second and answer any question on kind of the background of what brought me to here, and then can dive in quite a bit more tactically on what we're doing and why we think it might be interesting to some of you.
I will ask one. What is your opinion now on asking for reviews in exchange for something on Amazon now, since you ran a whole company behind it and now that's in the past?
Yeah, it's a great question. And then actually I've not been asked that question in a long time. I think broadly, if you've got a top tier product, there's very little to lose in most of these situations today. Now, I'll add at least 2 or 3 shops are really, really difficult. I think I wouldn't probably ask much of, like, in particular, Wirecutter, which I think most of you are probably familiar with, owned by the New York Times, Consumer Reports, which is an independent nonprofit, and Reviewed.com, which is a part of USA Today, which is owned by Gannett, a public company. Those 3 in particular, that's just, I don't think how they're going to respond best. If you know a unique writer or editor and he's asking for suggestions, or you have a really good deal running, maybe you send that over. But everyone else, I think broadly, it's not a dumb tactic. I've seen people have success, particularly if you have an insight into a specific niche and the actual writer or researcher that covers that vertical for a review site. There's PR agencies that y'all probably all know that do this stuff full time. And I think in many cases, it is somewhat pay to play. I mean, if it's interesting to everyone, I've got all the packages for BuzzFeed and, the different sites. Most of these, it's really hard to get coverage if you're not paying for coverage. And so it's kind of 3 buckets, I guess, to zoom out a little. You've got the Wirecutter, the Consumer Reports, where it's like very, very editorially driven, like some editors choosing to write about your product category, etc. And that's the way in. So you just have to, I don't want to say get lucky, but you have to have an established product that is in a category they review, that they consider, that they then physically review and like and write about. That's kind of the process. The other bucket is you have to pretty much pay to be covered in there. And it's just a question of, like, how can you navigate that financially to make it make sense? Because just for context, paying like $10,000 to BuzzFeed to be mentioned in some article for almost everyone is not going to be a great return on investment. And then the side of those that, I would say everyone else, it doesn't fall into those 2 buckets. It's kind of a mixture of luck of the draw and timing to see if you can surface the top. Is that helpful? Does that make sense? All right, so I'm going to go into a screen share here and just really start to kind of walk through what we did at Best Reviews and how that's evolved into what we're doing now. Has anyone ever seen these pages before, by the way? Like a Best Reviews kind of product, I would call it a product category review page. Okay. So this has been mimicked by a lot of the ecosystem. I was involved with the initial design and kind of creation of this type of template. But this is pretty standard, and like there's a few different layouts. We can look at them all. I think just so everyone's aware, The largest players today would be Round Forest, which you probably haven't heard of Round Forest, but you may have heard of like BestReviews.guide, Comparaboo. They have a bunch of different sites. They're one of the 5 largest today in the Amazon Associates worldwide ecosystem. Exxon Media, which you may not have heard of, but I can show you their flagship site. You've probably seen it around. It's bestproductreviews.com. They are the largest, they claim, at least, in the Amazon ecosystem today globally. They're driving about $1 billion a year in gross merchandise or total sales through Amazon. Now, they're not number one in the US, but they're big in like every single country. So I think they're number one, for instance, and this is another format. They're number one in Europe, number one in almost every country in Europe, number one in certain pockets of Asia, Australia. This layout is similar to what you'll see on some of the BestReviews.guide Round Forest sites. And then another one that's pretty big, you've probably heard of, is you've got Buyer's Guide. This is a subsidiary of Wixfire. I'm showing you one side of the house. Just keep in mind, a lot of this is paid search arbitrage. So what you're seeing here may not be the same thing. This landing page experience is pretty consistent on Buyer's Guide. And so, we'll come back to these as helpful, but that's just a little like tour of the ecosystem. You've got these paid players that drive a lot of Google that are kind of, generally speaking, the top from a traffic perspective and in sales. They're doing the most. You've also got people who do a lot more organic, which would be a Good Housekeeping. Best Reviews does some organic. They're typically a little bit smaller, but make up the kind of large portion. There's only a handful that can do paid search at any scale profitably. So it's a small bucket that drives a big share. And just to give a context to that share, Amazon's Associates program, let's call it ballpark 50 billion in sales. It'll drive in a given year. Of that 50 billion, if, for instance, Exxon Media with Best Product Reviews is driving over $1 billion, they're driving 2-3% of the global associate share, which is pretty big share for what's typically an enormously fragmented ecosystem. There's plenty of small players doing $100 a month in associates revenue. So what's going on here, and the reason I think it's worth a little minute here, A, this is like a big part of the ecosystem for any of your brands. B, what we do today is evolution, I would say maybe V2 or 3.0 of this initial idea. So the concept here is we've got a user searching on Google probably for dog calming treats. And I think I even have one of the searches in here. Yeah, you might be searching dog calming aid review. You hit this landing page off of a search text ad. And just to be clear, the search text ad is this unit here. These would be product listing ads for those that aren't familiar, or PLA, and this would be a Google text ad. So you're bringing a user in from that or off of an organic search. And the search is around a product category. And so you're trying to help a person understand within this world of calming dog treats, which product should they purchase? And everyone's following a pretty standard template. You're giving some sort of like top and then some sort of value purchase and then some contenders. And then there's oftentimes some text around this and that. And then you've got all this kind of background. Just for context, most users engage here and then click through. Broadly speaking, it's like over 90% of consumers are only engaging in this top of fold experience. They're not scrolling. Even though you've got all this content, a lot of this is really more for SEO purposes and for that small percentage of users that deeply engage with content. And then of course you click through, you're going to Amazon, oftentimes a product detail page, in this case, the product detail page. So this is where we started with Best Reviews. This is kind of where the world was pretty centered. Now, fast forward to today and what we're doing with ProductPicks. And I'll just walk through the funnel and then pause. For ProductPicks today, it's the same sort of search, except instead of sending them to Best Reviews, we're sending them to ProductPicks, which is, again, this is a owned and operated site of MaverickX and a big part of kind of what we do today. And you'll notice a few things. First and foremost, only one brand, merchant, or product seller covered here. It's thin. So what we've found is you oftentimes can create a lot more value when you're partnered more deeply with a merchant, seller, or brand by having a page that's very idiosyncratic and specific to their SKUs, because you don't really want to be driving transactions to another SKU. So in this case, you've got very, very thin focused as an example here. You've got video content. I think everyone's got knowledge. That's a big part of the internet now, particularly mobile internet. And so having abilities for users, in this case, to click through and purchase off of a video can be quite meaningful for click-through rate, engagement, conversion rate. And then you've kind of got information and more information down below the fold for people who want to understand, more about why do they actually want to get thin product, or why do they want to get a dog calming aid or multivitamin. The other nuance is we're driving, in this case, to the product detail page that we opened up over here. We do not do that in every case. So one thing we've learned is based on the product type, the search term you're going after, and other variables, you may be in one of these situations, and I'm sure you all have seen it, where all this stuff down here has gotten blown out by competitors, all these sponsored units. And so if you drive a user to a PDP when the ad space around it's been blown out by competitors, and the product is perhaps a slightly higher price point or a lower review count than the competitors, you will not see a very good conversion rate on that PDP. So what we've tested, and it seems to be working, is in some cases instead of driving from here to the PDP, we'll drive from here to the storefront, and the storefront doesn't have those options where you can get caught up in a bunch of different ad units for competitors, and can be a better experience and better conversion rate than sending them here. And what you're kind of doing is you're helping the consumer in this step understand why they might want to buy a product from Ben. Then on that storefront, you're helping them get even more comfortable. And then your view and the data has to support it. By the time they get to the PDP, they're not actually doing a lot of engagement down here if there's kind of an ad army that's going to be super unhelpful to the process, and they still convert and purchase. So I'm going to stop for a second. That's the really simple high level where we are on MaverickX today. I'll dive more tactical. I'd love to stop for a second and just see if there's any questions, comments from anyone who's here.
Yeah, this is a very similar concept to what we talk about, except the keywords you're going after, the search terms that you're going after, are just slightly different. So you're going after more product-based search terms, where somebody's searching for a calming dog aid supplement, and you're going after that best calming dog aid supplement on Google, sending them to a landing page that's all about that. Whereas in what we talk about is problem-based keywords. So I don't know dogs that well, so I apologize for this, but anxiety for my dog is the problem. And then we'd send them to a page that's all about why your dog has anxiety and this is what's going to help. So more of a problem-based page, and then we send them over to the supplement. So just kind of a different spin on thing, where you guys focus more on like those product-based search terms, and we focus more on the problem-based search terms.
Completely agree. And I would add another way we'll work with a partner is we'll go after a competitor. So I'm going to give a hypothetical that I think everyone here is familiar with because it's really helpful. Has anyone here, I'm assuming, has anyone here not heard of Yeti, the cooler maker? Yeti coolers? So everyone's got some understanding about Yeti. Who here is familiar with Arctic? RTIC. So Arctic is, imagine Yeti at 50% lower price point. That's Arctic. And so another interesting thing we can do, and I can pull up a visual here if it's helpful, is we can actually go after a competitor's branded keywords and branded search from a challenger brand, win and convert people off into a different funnel. So here, if I'm a user, I'm searching Yeti. As you might assume, Yeti's branded search is unbelievable. I mean, we'll pull up the comparable here so everyone can kind of see it. This is a good tool, by the way. If you don't use Google Trends when thinking about branded search, I recommend you do. Arctic is spelled RTIC. So if you look pretty clear here, our ballpark, it's like 10x the paid search or the branded keywords that are searched for Yeti versus Arctic. Pretty big difference. If we go back in time, I imagine it's even more. Do a 5-year look back. It's pretty similar. Anyway, the idea here is, okay, Yeti's basically funding branded search through all their content marketing and ad campaigns. They've got a paid ad here. They're probably paying almost nothing for this on a CPC basis. Arctic could create a page that says, all of this sort of stuff like we would do about Arctic coolers. And you might even mention Yeti and kind of say why hey, this is like much more expensive. Our Arctic cooler is much cheaper and it's effectively the same product. Drive a user straight off Yeti branded search and straight into an Arctic buyer's funnel, particularly someone searching Yeti plus Amazon. And I bet this modifier is searched at decent volume. You can drive this, and there's these Amazon pages here, but you could put a paid unit there and be driving the user to a ProductPicks page for Arctic. And then boom, you're converting through, getting really low CPCs, potentially solid conversion rate. What you're effectively doing is snaking, as the term would be used in the paid search world, snaking a user out of the Arctic funnel or the Yeti funnel into the Arctic funnel to make a purchase. And it's the exact same concept we spoke about earlier when we talked about this PDP and people who try to reel you in, right at the bottom of the funnel on the PDP into their competitive product. So that's another example where we would do something, Travis, that I think is a little bit idiosyncratic, and there's not a lot of people in the ecosystem doing it today. but there's real opportunity there if you're in a category where there's someone with strong brand recognition, strong branded search, and maybe not anyone who's thought about how to undercut that or leverage it for their own funnel. So that's another capability. Chris,
We
you have
use
something?
that. We pretty much use that to build our entire, not our entire brand, but we built a big section of our brand based on our competitor. Our competitor was a pharmaceutical medication that you prescribed, and they took their price from $30 a month to $300 a month. And so we attack them, but in a good way. So like we advertise all over their search terms, their keywords, all over Google ads, all over Amazon PPC, even though you couldn't get it online at the time. It was prescription only, but we draw them into a competitor analysis article that talked about their product and how it is so good because it's a great product. But then we said, here's an over-the-counter better alternative. Go purchase it here on Amazon. And so we did it that way back in 2017. And that's how we're planning on building our current brand that we're building in the very beginning phases of it. We're actually going to attack Nutella, and we're trying to use Nutella's brand presence in their 50 to 500,000 searches they get a month or whatever it is, and taking them from Nutella to why they should buy our healthy alternative to that. And so that's kind of one of our strategies around what we're doing to build the brand currently. All right, Ben, thanks for coming on and sharing your knowledge.
Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Travis.
All right, thanks, y'all.
Bye-bye. Like this video!
Amazon PPC may seem like a complex subject, but it doesn't have to be, and that is why we created this channel. On top of Amazon PPC, we're going to share different tactics and strategies that we've used to build a multi-million-dollar business, as well as the strategies that we're using to build a $100 million company, which is our goal. We don't know how we're going to get there yet, but that's our goal, and we want to take you along for the ride. So make sure you subscribe to our channel and hit the little bell to be notified whenever we come out with great business building and Amazon PPC strategies.